What happens when the antagonists of a movie are actually the protagonists? This is an interesting facet of film that has been executed time and time again within the cinematic medium. As audiences, we expect to follow a protagonist of a film throughout the events of the runtime in a way that makes them deeply empathizable and relatable, in which we can view their actions and understand their intent. Yet, what happens when this is not entirely the case? Throughout film history, many movies have been crafted in which the central protagonist isn't a protagonist at all. Rather, these main characters are portrayed as deeply flawed individuals, sometimes dabbling in shady morals or viewpoints that directly contradict the thoughts and feelings of the audience. This can be an interesting phenomena for viewers, as it allows us a window into a situation where we unknowingly root for the quote-unquote villains of a story even though we might not agree with their actions. This is exemplified time and time again throughout film as an art form, particularly within the heist genre, where movies like Soderbergh's Ocean's 11 stand as a shining example. Throughout that film's plot, as we follow Danny Ocean and his team as they stage a heist at the infamous Bellagio, Mirage, and MGM Grand Casinos, we unknowingly and subconsciously root for these characters to pursue and achieve their goal, even though such theft would fly in the face of our moral standards in any other situation. These types of films beg an important question. Where is the distinctly blurred line between good and bad drawn in the cinematic medium? What makes these characters so deeply empathizable while simultaneously deeply flawed? And why do we come to care so much about their success while blatantly ignoring this distinction between good and bad? These are all questions that are pondered at one point or another within the cinematic medium. Yet, when viewing such an individual and unique premise such as this, you can find no finer example of this inherent balance between good and bad within the film's protagonists than in the most unlikely of places. And that specific place is within the 2022 animated Dreamworks film, The Bad Guys. Now, on its surface, The Bad Guys does not look like anything inherently special. Based on the children's novel by author Aaron Blabey, it's a movie that is deceptively simple on its shiny exterior and surface, with flashy animation that includes a hyper-stylized blend of 2D and 3D techniques, a vibrant cast of zany characters, and offbeat humor included within the film's plot. It is a film that does a specific job of family entertainment quite well. Yet, when you dig below the surface of the film, and you truly examine the film and its events from an analytical lens, you will find that this loving homage to the heist genre is a film that genuinely raises the same exact questions that come to mind when viewing other films of past inside of this heist genre. And this is because The Bad Guys is a film that grapples with the same question as its centralized theme, which is explored to a quite profound degree for a movie of this caliber. Within the opening scene of The Bad Guys, we as audiences are introduced to the characters of Wolf and Snake, two of the members of the gang who sit in a diner shooting rapid-fire dialogue back and forth with ease in a blatant homage to Tarantino films of old. As the characters begin to move through their environment, clever camera placement reveals the other residents of the diner, who cower in fear as the characters move with ease through their environment. Right off the bat, audiences are introduced to two characters who don't exactly fit the bill for our moral standards, and this is continued throughout the opening scene as the main crew of The Bad Guys stage an elaborate bank heist, running off with their loot as the chief of police, long plagued by the issue of The Bad Guys, chases after them. In translating the heist genre to an animated format, director Pierre Perifel is allowed the freedom to experiment and showcase the tropes of the genre in a way that suits the over-the-top and overtly comedic environment on display. Take, for example, the sequence here, in which the bad guys are on the run from the police, and we get a fantastic segment in which Wolf drives the car down a steep set of stairs, as the characters comically float through the air. By using this animated medium to bring a classic getaway scene to a vibrant format, Peripheral is allowed to experiment and showcase a wild and zany translation of these tropes in a way that otherwise would not be exemplified in any other format. As the bad guys make their way back to their lair, we as audiences view the fruit of their efforts in the form of mountains of gold and treasures that were nabbed during heists piled up in droves. It's also within this scene where we get a glimpse of complex characterization underneath the group's gruff exterior. In small moments throughout, we get glimpses that these characters truly care for each other, whether it's Piranha singing Happy Birthday to Snake, or the small yet profound moment when Snake hangs up a newly taken group photo on the fridge. This is a moment of the film where audiences are first introduced to an important quandary that hasn't taken focus up to this point in the film. So far, we've witnessed the bad guys participate in morally corrupt acts, but are they truly bad characters? Is this feeling of love and camaraderie more out of a sense of personal satisfaction or gain, or more out of an underlying feeling of goodness lying dormant inside? The bad guys might do bad things, that much is sure, but are they good underneath in any regard? These important questions are explored further throughout the runtime as the film's plot begins to take hold, where a new heist is formed quickly. After the newly elected governor Diane Foxington publicly humiliates the group on the national broadcasting stage, Wolf begins to devise a plan to solidify their status as the baddest group of thieves in history. When the city's best quote-unquote do-gooder, Professor Marmalade, is about to receive the annual Good Samaritan Award, a prestigious honor that is awarded to the best and most exemplary citizen of the city, Wolf and his group devise a plot to take it for themselves. As they infiltrate the Good Samaritan Award venue, and the group begins to prepare to nab the coveted award, Wolf is caught in a compromising situation where he is ultimately forced to inadvertently save an elderly woman from falling, where the ensuing feeling of goodness that radiates from within afterward makes Wolf question his very role inside of this operation and the bad guys at large. large. This is one of the first instances in which we as audiences see Wolf's gruff exterior and interior start to crack, in which that inherent idea of goodness begins to take root inside. After the heist fails and the group is caught, Wolf begins to appeal to Professor Marmalade's inherent good side by stating that the concept of goodness lies dormant inside of everyone and just waits for the opportunity to flourish and blossom. After Professor Marmalade agrees to take the bad guys under his wing in order to turn them quote-unquote good, the bad guys immediately start to devise a plan in order to gain the Golden Dolphin Award back. Yet, although Wolf joins the group in cheering and proclaiming exhilaration and excitement at the very thought of taking the award back, we as audiences see that, deep down, Wolf is still grappling with the events of the evening, which is further exemplified as the group is trained under Professor Marmalade. In this sequence of the film, various different techniques and ideas used to promote the concept of goodness inside of the bad guys fail again and again. By forcing the group to partake in kind acts, Marmalade is indeed ignoring the core concept of goodness that remains the most important factor. You cannot rush or force the very concept. Inherent goodness comes from within. It needs to be genuine and heartfelt in order to make an impact or be actually meaningful. In fact, one of the escapades in which Marmalade makes the bad guys partake in order to showcase their goodness, which is freeing a bunch of guinea pigs from an animal testing laboratory, ends worse than it is intended, as widespread damage and harm resulting from such an experiment is put entirely as the fault of the group. This causes the group itself to wonder, can they really be good? Can goodness result from a forced construct that allows participants to feel like they are truly making a difference? Or do they have to dig deeper below the surface to unearth their own personal feelings and ideas in relation to the subject matter? As Wolf and the gang grapple with this very idea, it is truly Wolf who begins to realize the real core of the matter in his dynamic with the governor Diane Foxington, who is herself hesitant to give the group a second chance. Yet, within an interaction later on in the film, it's revealed that deep down, Diane truly wants the group to succeed at any cost necessary. It is revealed to Wolf that deep down, Diane truly understands and relates to the feeling that society at large reinforces negative stereotypes about our inherent role in society. Yet we can rise above that to forge our own paths in life. And with this, Wolf begins to realize that perhaps these words do hold inherent value. Maybe, deep down, the smallest of actions can make all the difference. And this proceeds to ring true for the character after a small action, saving a small cat from a tree, begins to shape his entire outlook. As the group prepares to once again steal the Golden Dolphin at the fundraising gala, Wolf does something truly outside of his characterization thus far, which showcases such drastic change. He hesitates, whether out of his inherent feeling of goodness within, or his hesitation to let the world at large, in particular Governor Foxington, down. He decides to do something that flies in the face of his entire characterization up to this point in the film. He doesn't steal the dolphin. He instead gives it back to its rightful owner, Professor Marmalade. This sends the rest of the group into a confused panic, unable to grapple with or comprehend Wolf's shift in characterization up to this point. Yet ultimately, when the gang is framed by Professor Marmalade and sent to a maximum security prison, this same doubt from before sneaks into Wolf's mind about how the rest of society at large perceives them. It seems that no matter how much good they ultimately do, they will still be viewed as outsiders and criminals who don't have a chance to forge their own path ahead. This centralized angle is the heart and soul of a film like The Bad Guys, in which the inherent concept of goodness is used as a construct through which a heartfelt and open exploration is broached into its subject matter. We watch as these characters who are ultimately considered beyond redemption are given the opportunity to be something more to profound effect. As Governor Foxington makes note of during her speech at the Good Samaritan Awards earlier on in the film, there is indeed good that can be found in the worst places if you look hard enough. And this much is true for Wolf and the rest of the bad guys as the film progresses. This is further explored by Wolf's relationship with Diane after she reveals her checkered past as the Crimson Paw, a notorious criminal who gave up a life of crime and theft in order to pursue a different path. As she tells Wolf at one specific venture within the film, there arrived a specific moment where she took a look at the path she had carved out for herself and realized she was only harming people more than she was helping them, which changed her outlook on everything. And while this unique thematic angle applies to Diane, it also applies to Wolf as well, who, strengthened by his new resolve to pursue goodness, decides to help Diane foil Professor Marmalade's evil plot to control the city. Yet this inherent opportunity for goodness is not only yielded to Wolf, but for the rest of the group as well. At first, the rest of the bad guys are unsure of Wolf's new path. After a life of crime and heist work, these characters are both unsure of a path of life that doesn't see their thieving escapades, and also anxious as to what society at large will think of them. Yet, as Wolf likens the feeling of goodness to the wagging of his tail, the rest of these characters similarly begin to feel an inherent well-being shift their perspective, which also includes arriving at the aid of Wolf and Diane to help stop Marmalade. You see, The Bad Guys is an interesting film in how it broaches its subject matter throughout its runtime. As Wolf states in the prologue of the film, the bad guys might be bad, but they're extremely good at it. Yet, as the film's events transpire, and each of these characters begin to understand the inherent worth of goodness and how it changes their outlook on life, their actions take on incredible weight and depth, showcased particularly in their relationships with each other. It would be easy for an animated film of this caliber to skip on so much of the nuance and complexity imparted at key points throughout its runtime. Yet The Bad Guys works on such a profound level because it commits to this premise and idea. We as a society have all grappled with the concept of goodness at one point or another. It's instilled inside of us from an early age, and it continues to grow as we evolve and change over time. Yet, it can often be forgotten that we all have the capacity for goodness in a world where intense events transpire, tensions rise, and anger anger and resentment seem to take hold now more than ever. Yet, it's also important to look inward at these moments, to see that flourishing feeling of goodness inside, and to realize that when we start to put compassion and respect into the world, we might get it back. And this is something that a film like The Bad Guys not only understands, but also conveys to an expert degree throughout its runtime. Make no mistake, The Bad Guys is as zany, crazy, and vibrant as animated movies come. With a stellar voice cast, bright and flashy animation, and quick pacing, it's a movie that often feels like it moves 1,000 miles a minute. Yet it also underlies a surprisingly complex and involved thematic angle that audiences might not expect from a film of this caliber. As we watch Wolf and his team as they begin to understand that the feeling resulting from their kind acts resonates and feels more worthwhile than the years of treasure they've stockpiled inside of their lair, audiences relate, empathize, and most importantly, feel for these characters by the end of the film. Towards the beginning of this video essay, I asked the key question: what happens when the antagonists of a movie are actually the protagonists? And in the case of this film in particular, what happens is this: you begin to understand and root for their development as good people. The Bad Guys remains an important reminder about the impact and result of kind acts within our world, and broaches these subjects in a way that remains fun, vibrant, and over the top without ever losing sight of its impact. That this topic is broached with prison breakouts, fast-paced car chases, ninja fights, and elaborate heist plots is just a perk of the film itself, and audiences checking out The Bad Guys might leave with more than they contemplate going in. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this review on my channel. If you're new around here and you like the content you see, don't forget to click that subscribe button down below, like the video, and turn on push notifications. Also, leave comment suggestions down below for future video, essay, and review topics. With that being said, until next time, this is Mitchell signing off. Peace out.